Welcoming to the stage Jillian Mayer, Turgeman, Noz Nozawa, and Maya Crowne.
Hi, everybody. We are very happy to be here today. This has been an awesome weekend. Thank you so much, the Aspen Design Conference. My name is Maya Crowne. I am, among other things, the CEO and co-founder of a company called Alchemist, the world's first wellness paint. For those of you that are wondering what a wellness paint is, please feel free to find me afterwards. But we are a cradle-to-cradle certified mineral paint. And truly one of the best parts about my job is the fact that I get to collaborate with exceptional people. And so I'm very excited to introduce my panel over here of incredible friends, muses, and collaborators. I'm going to start with Maya Turgeman. Maya is a multidisciplinary artist and designer who founded Raise the Morale Studio. So Morale, could you tell the audience a little bit about Raise the Morale? What does that mean exactly?
Well, I'd like to call the studio more of like a living organism because what we create is constantly evolving. We don't work in one medium. We're creating for a shifting world. So everything that we do kind of evolves and shifts as the time, depending on the project, whatever it is, whether it be situational, site-specific. And we create in architecture, we create furniture pieces, we create immersive experiences, and we like to bring in technology and always kind of make sure that there's something that you interact with, something that you feel, something that you connect with. So the works are always quite interactive, and we create for spaces that evolve with you. So whether it be our haptic works that you can feel frequency and resonance through, or whether it be some of the portraits that you guys may have experienced yesterday, it's really all about human connection and reminding people how to feel. And we're living in such an overstimulated time that it is really important to kind of tap back into the body. So most of what we do really brings you back into the body and reminds you that it is important to be connected with self so that you can connect with others.
Amazing, thank you, Morale. My second guest that I'd like to introduce is Noz Nozawa. Noz is a San Francisco-based designer known for creating artful and deeply personal interiors that fosters both joy and connection. Noz, how would you describe the spirit of your work in your own words?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you, Aspen. I would say, honestly, the spirit of what I like to do is it's really personal, whether it's a commercial space like a restaurant or a bar or a store, or it's your home. All of the spaces are really almost like painting a portrait. So I feel like portraiture is going to be something that comes up a lot today. But I almost think of like an interior space or a home or the volume that a business is operating in as the canvas onto which I am using materials and pattern and color and lighting and shadow to like form a version of a portrait, which means it's not a photograph portrait, right? It's like a painted portrait in which it's the best version of who you want to be in that space or the experience that you want to have in that room. That's what I'm creating with the mediums of fabric and furniture and things like that. Yeah.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, we've got Jillian Mayer over here to my right. Jillian is an artist and designer based in Miami whose internationally exhibited work explores how technology, identity, fantasy, and survival evolve in a rapidly changing world. Jillian, how would you describe your work to somebody who hasn't had an opportunity to see it yet?
Hello, I'm Jillian. Thanks for having me. I think that it depends on the project. I jump around a lot in mediums and materials. It's usually the concept that determines what the final output will be, and even considering which audience whether it's for online or versus it being in a more traditional theater or a gallery exhibition. You have to take in certain types of qualities that are distinguished by your reception and the different channels. In terms of like aesthetics, when I get into my more sculptural world, I use this word that I made up called Flintstone-esque. So things are a bit like, I don't really like right corners or like perfectly drawn lines. I think maybe a machine could do that, or a ruler, and I'm just not interested in that. I really like humans. I'm an optimist, so I like to see the time and the gestures and the impression that an individual may leave on a work. So you'll find a lot of, even in like my bronze work, it'll be like thumbprints from hand molding wax, or yeah, I just am not into like the really factory look. So it's kind of, each piece is hopefully unique and yeah, ideally fun, or some type of humor is involved in it. I've been doing a lot of artwork lately, but kind of transitioning a bit to design and public works. So
amazing. Well, as a creative myself, I know that the roots of inspiration come from within. And, you know, it's shaped by intuition, curiosity, a personal sense of ethics. In a world, especially today, that can often feel complex and unpredictable and challenging, I'm curious to explore how your own internal compasses influence your work. So I'd love to hear what you guys think about the future and how does it influence your practice right now? And we'll start with Morale.
Well, the future, I believe, is an ongoing dialogue that we are creating collectively. And it starts with thought forms. And the way we think inspires how we act, and the way we act attracts other energies and other humans around us. So I really believe that we're in control of that narrative and that we're making it up as we go. And I think that what influences me most is creating experiences that allow people to tap into their true self. And that just means finding a comfort within yourself, like sinking into something that feels good. And that's something that we're all able to achieve, but we're like living in this time where there's just so much going on and moving from place to place, and or space to space, or situation to situation, whatever it is, life is moving so fast. And taking a moment of stillness to really tap into like what we want to create and what we want to feel and what we want to be around is something that we can inspire together.
That's beautiful. Noz?
Yeah, so this is one where, I mean, we're going to get a little behind the scenes. Our pre-production call was my very first time getting to be introduced in any kind of like living color version to Morale and Jillian. And it was very interesting because on the one hand, my work speaks joy and it's colorful. And you are seeing on the screen some examples of it. Like it's joyful and it's fun and there's a lot of like childlike sensibility and it explodes with feeling and it's like, and then on the other hand, I'm like, what if humanity is ending? And what if this is the beginning of it? And we will see in 5 generations where we are. And I struggle a lot of times existentially with what is it that I really do, right? Because if you just sort of, as an interior designer, it's a patron-based creative service. So it's a luxury service. It is not by any means necessary. And if you broke it down pessimistically, the crux of what I do is I court the attention and patronage of incredibly wealthy individuals to fill their homes with consumption that they don't necessarily need and might not necessarily be what's best if you put the environment first or humanity first or ending suffering first. And that's what I do for a living. And also that's what I believe I was put on this earth to do. How glamorous and chic. Thank you, Instagram, for giving me this opportunity. So it's really devastating on the one hand. And I have, no, like, isn't it though? I mean, like my work, my portfolio is so heartbreaking. So I've deeply struggled with this since I started on this path about 12 years ago. And yet this is what I was put on this earth to do. And I believe that so much of what I am called to do is create environments that inspire the best out of the people that I'm working for. And what's lovely about being an interior designer in this specific time, while I also acknowledge that there's suffering and war and craziness and famine and all of these other devastating things that are actually devastating, like capital D devastating. On the other hand, like I have an unprecedented in the history of interiors, right, which has been a thing that we've had for 500 years since like French royalty, Italian royalty. Like interiors has always been a thing that was just for the elite, quotes. I get to share that now. Like I get to, and I only have so far clients who want me to take pictures of it and show it to people and get it published and share it and have that inspire people. And then I also get to use, you know, their money to support and patronize other creatives and artists and you know, sort of help guide where that money is going instead of it going to like, you know, some awful soulless place where there's just like nonsense manufacturing with questionable labor practices. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
Noz Nozawa, everybody.
Thanks.
I love it. Okay, Jillian, and what about you? Tell us about your views on the future and how it influences your work.
So I'm, as I said, I'm an optimist. I've been called a futurist before. A lot of my work was about 10 years ago. I made a lot of film work and video work, and it was a lot, are often inspired by the technological singularity, Ray Kurzweil kind of theories, moving forward, multiverses. And I am really thrilled that ideas about the multiverse are very mainstream now, like with Spider-Man going through it, and also Everywhere All at Once, Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I know both of those filmmaking teams, so I think it's really fun that we just all get really weirded out together and imagine every possibility at the same time. I like that. I am also very into people who don't think future moves forward and that they're trying to see it backwards, but that's just kind of like fun brain mapping things for me. So I would like to say that, like Noz, I've thought a lot about like prepper and survivalist culture. And I don't know if that's because I was raised in a place that often has hurricanes where it's like, is this going to pass us or is this going to directly modify my life? And I went to I started making a body of work about prepper culture. And I had several shows that have toured that were on those themes. And I went to PrepperCon in North Carolina, and they definitely knew I wasn't one of them, but I was so excited. They tried to kick me out at one point because they thought I was press. And it was funny because they're like, why are you recording people? We said no press. And I was like, no, I'm an artist. They're like, what kind of art? And I was like, conceptual. And they're like, what? I'm like, I don't know, sculpture. And it ended up being fine in the end, I think. But the work so much was informed by when you have like maybe wealthy people being able to acquire expensive works, what would be the last work they even acquire? And thinking about what are the roles of a work in end times. So I was making work that I realized could float. And in a place where sea level rise determines our landmass and our lives, I was like, yes, I could stand on this sculpture in times of emergency or float away on it. Okay, and that inspired a ton of my work that I had in this show called Timeshare. So most of my work that is that you'll see in the sculptural world here floats if it's made in like that fiberglass. I use really industrial materials. I try to use materials and save them from the trash if there's a foam core. So because foam's like a really gross material. And even when it comes to a lot of my metal work, I try to use work that already exists and not trying to affect supply and demand so much. Because yes, we all know limited resources. We're here right now. I'm trying to have like a good time. So make things and, you know, like trying to make the best of this shitstorm, you know?
I totally hear you on that. Well, okay, so, you know, as creatives, intuition shapes a lot. And I'd love to understand, given that you guys are, you know, working in this two-sided dynamic where you have clients and there's outside logic that can inform what it is that you do, I'd like to understand, has intuition ever led you in a direction that logic or outside opinion resisted? Jillian, let's start with you.
Logic, okay. Well, I guess I've gotten some cease and desist letters along the way, and I don't know if we count that as like outside, but maybe outside my friends and like frame of reference. And so I'll give you some free legal advice because you should always listen to people you don't know. And it's a cease and desist letter means nothing till you're actually in court. So if you have that idea and you feel that it falls under fair use, like really just go for it. And it's so confusing now with like the way things are collaged from music to like iterations and references. So I was a evil space queen that was the internet in a movie called, an animated short called Chris Bosh, The Adventures of Chris Bosh in the Multiverse. So he was an NBA power forward for the Miami Heat, and that's his like daytime job, but really he's an intergalactic space king trying to fight this battle against me. And yeah, we got like cease and desist letters from like the NBA and CAA. Another time where I made a music video with a friend for a band called the Jacuzzi Boys, which was an indie music group, which was also really Sub Pop, which was also Warner. And they went after us also. We made a home music video of singing vulvas, so like puppetry on vulvas. And then it wasn't that we called like YouTube, we talked to them and said, whatever, it's okay. We had got on the phone with Vimeo. They're like, okay, it's art, I get it, we won't take it down. But then the indie label took it down because they were mad that we used iconic characters like Ronald McDonald, Jabba the Hutt, like as puppetry. So it was 5 friends that I had as my actors. And this led to a whole discussion about what is a fan and what is fair use. And we got to do a panel at South by Southwest, I think in like 2015 or so, it was called Fair Use and Vagina Puppetry. The music video is called Glazin' by the Jacuzzi Boys. Check it out.
Love it. Morale. It's a hard one to follow up, but
I know how.
Okay, well, thinking and creating outside the box means having to not only follow your intuition, but make everyone believe that this can happen, even though it seems unlikely. Especially when you're talking about like, working with materials that don't mesh together, or creating something that's never been created before, or, having to deliver something in a timeline that's just completely unrealistic. Like, but like deep in your gut, that like this is happening, this is what you want to do. And you just have to follow that. And then you just have to guide everyone around you on the team and get everyone to believe in themselves, not in you, in themselves, so that they can deliver for themselves and for the greater good of what you're doing. And so this is like a constant. This is not like, this is on every project, this is always happening. And so I think it's really important to lead with that feeling that comes from within. Like, if you really believe that it can happen, like you can move a mountain, like you can. It happens.
Love it. Thanks, Morale. And so as we think about the future, obviously there's this conversation around sustainability. And Noz, you're working with materials all the time. And based on your introductory statement, I'm curious, do you consider sustainability a constraint, an inspiration, or an illusion?
Yes, all of the above. So it's actually funny. The sustainability conversation is one where I'm always learning another version of sustainability, right? Where actually when it comes to building sciences, there have been now significant studies showing that on the one hand, something that might be deemed as a sustainable material on the basis of how it degrades or on the basis of what its origin was, whether it's waste material or whatever, is actually really bad to live with potentially. And that is also bad, right? Or in the case of these like vacuum seal, total passive architecture houses that you're using spray foam insulation and you're using these materials that fully lock you into a chamber, which could be good and useful in the event of a wildfire and there's smoke outside. On the other hand, is it sustainable for the human body, which is actually why we're bothering to be sustainable, is to make our human race as healthy and give our people and the environment as much wellness wellness is possible. Like, do you want to be living in a vacuum sealed box where everything around you is degrading as spray foam insulation does? And that's all toxins and chemicals and things where free radicals are messing with your hormones, and they're showing increasingly that there's, and this is all meant to sound like a big giant run-on sentence, because the answer with regard to sustainability is yeah. Like it's kind of, depending on how you slice it, it means something else. And then on the other hand too, like, there's all these other ethical conversations around with regard to interiors, like, should we only be buying old, that there's all of this beautiful material out there that's vintage and antique, and we could be restoring it and saving it. But on the other hand, there are human beings on this earth now who are driven to be creative, and there's nothing unethical and there's nothing unsustainable about supporting new creations that have been created one by artists' hands. Like, what is that role in the sustainability conversation? Do people who are artists owe the planet, and artists are so oftentimes not the ones who are ending the earth, right? That's like ExxonMobil and, AI or whatever, depending on who you're talking to. Do the artists owe you working only with reclaimed wood or only with waste material? Like, do they owe us that? Or is it in fact something where we think of sustainability as sustaining creativity and sustaining hope and sustaining, like vision and a reason to believe in tomorrow by allowing artists and creatives the bandwidth to do whatever we want? But it's interesting because sort of hearing you guys with the intuition thing, like, one of the biggest moments where I really had to trust my gut started very early on. Like, so I switched careers at 27, oh my God, I was like so worried at the time that it was like so late in my life to be changing careers at 27. How sad. And I like just, because like we're women, our lives end at 30, right? Sheesh. So I had a really early opportunity because I didn't have like a network of people with homes or anything like that. Like, I had a cold call. The client had like this gorgeous multi-100-acre land down in the suburbs of San Francisco. And it was a new build, 9,000 square feet. And they wanted me to bid on this opportunity. And it was so exciting until I saw the drawing set. And that drawing set included the demo plan. They were planning to demolish a house completely just to rotate the new larger structure 15 degrees closer toward the way the sun was passing. And that old house had been built 8 years ago. And I was like, I don't know that I could do this. So this was like the big, and I mean, for many, many, many months after this, I didn't get another inquiry like that. But I said no to that opportunity because I was like, I just can't in good conscience support and be a part of something that I consider just so egregiously selfish, to demolish a perfectly nice house instead of just renovate it and spruce it up. Or frankly, my gosh, like, dude, go buy other land that just has no house on it, or buy like something decrepit that you can save. And so anyway, so that was kind of my relationship with intuition, sustainability, and how that all kind of comes together in a industry where what I am asked to do is help people consume.
Can I add to that? I
Absolutely.
think it makes me think a lot about permanence, which also has to do with like legacy, of course. And if people are spending a lot of money, they want to not have to do that again. So then they might opt for materials that keep the outside, but really nothing that Earth really made originally was in that nature. Like there is the benefits of the window and wood and porous materials, and even like in your paint, like this ability to have the systems that exist be replicated in our contemporary engineering, just looking to nature for the inspiration. And like that's the actual high luxury, I think, not just like pretending that you've solved it, like man versus nature kind of stuff. So.
This reminds me of a quote. I had the great pleasure of speaking with Darren O'Lean, who wrote the book Super Life. And he had mentioned to me that when you work in concert with nature, things are able to grow as a function of that. When you work against nature, and you see this in so many different examples, things start to die. So as we step beyond our internal worlds, let's turn to the forces that surround us. I'm curious how the external world, whether it be clients, institutions, cultural expectations, politics, shapes and challenges your creative process. And Noz, I'd love to hear how you navigate between what the world expects of you, particularly clients, and what you feel compelled to create.
I mean, I think I've been really fortunate that the clients that reach out to me have seen work that I've done that either resonates with them aesthetically or more oftentimes than not resonates with them from like a narrative and storytelling standpoint, which means that they're already coming to me. And these are the people that I'm directly taking money from. And therefore they're really technically the only audience that I serve, right? Is these one at a time clients. And they want me to do what I do, which is really wonderful. It wasn't always the case. It was a lot of like, I saw this and could you do, but they're not asking me to copy anything. They're asking me to sort of, do something that they already have in mind. These days, it's a lot more of an open conversation. So on the client side, I specifically, don't struggle as much as other designers that I know and respect with regard to what is my sort of creative idea for the house? What do I think makes sense for this particular space? And what do you want as a client? The thing that's really weird is all of the inputs from everyone else in the creative universe. And that to me, I think is kind of the third party in the external world that I feel all the time I'm kind of like struggling to not pay attention to, which is other creatives who are finishing works that I'm inspired by or sometimes repulsed by, but in a good way usually, or where I just feel like my soul is dying because everything starts to look the same. Like that is where I really start to feel like, oh God, am I getting very messy with my clarity? Because I'm seeing increasingly so much volume of creative output that I wonder sometimes, like, how do I, like, is that necessarily now a part of the environment that I operate within? Like, do I necessarily receive all of this creative information and use that as kind of the context that I know my clients are operating into? Or do I try and be more pure and reference only texts and books that have been published 20, 30, 40 years ago about this universe that we live in, and then try and sort of like allow creativity to come from areas that aren't within interior design? So that to me is kind of the one place that creativity is noisy. Institutions-wise, interior design is funny. We don't really have institutions except for magazines. And I have my own funny relationship with what I think matters when it comes to, celebrity homes being published to the exclusion of really creative work. So yeah.
Absolutely. And so Jillian, turning the question to you as an artist, can you share a time in which responding to like a social or political issue shaped a project in a way that you didn't necessarily anticipate besides the cease and desist?
Yes, one of the largest projects I had ever almost finished got stolen. That was weird. And then like, it's funny because my gallerist was like, conceptually, it'd be great if you found the work. And I was like, yeah, conceptually. It would like also just be awesome. He didn't mean it in a bad way. He was just thinking about like narratives. But I built this bunker that was an artist residency in a 20-foot enclosed trailer. I had some grant funding from Miami organization called Oolite. I had funding from Sundance Film Festival. I had solar panels that I kind of ripped off something else that Facebook paid for. Water tank, shower, heater. We built a Murphy bed. I made a whole ceramic kitchen.
And somebody stole this?
They stole it.
How?
Like 2 weeks before I finished. I even had, and the whole idea of it was supposed to be like a hideaway. And it was parked in Isla Morada, which is one of the Florida Keys, one of the first ones you get to from Miami if you're driving there. And I had it parked on this private lot on the ocean, and I was almost done. And then one day I get a call asking if I had taken it, and I was like, no. And then I start getting calls from the cops. So there's a nationwide BOLO, be on the lookout. I learned a lot. And yeah, it was supposed to not have trackers in it because it was this thing that was supposed to kind of function as like a Faraday chamber. So like no reception. I'm kind of into surveillance and stuff like that, or like lack of surveillance maybe. And they clipped off my locks and stole it. But now if I was to do it again, I would probably take the wheels off.
Yeah, that seems like a good idea.
So if anyone has a 20-foot trailer they don't want, let's call me.
So you never found this bunker again?
No, and the crazy thing was in my like sculptural style, the whole interior was like that. So it's kind of like Flintstone Pee-wee's Playhouse. I have some photos of it. So the whole thing is like, did they steal the trailer thinking, oh, cool, we got this trailer. It was probably like lawnmower gear or jet ski in it. And then they opened it and they were like, what the hell is this? Or were they like, this is incredible and I would love to live here. I have never been more inspired to steal. So like, I don't know, you know?
Seems like a significant effort. I believe they must have liked the bunker very, very much.
If you look up my name and like apocalypse, doomsday bunker stolen, you can like read some news articles on it.
Okay, great. Well, a little light reading for everybody after the panel. Yeah. Morel, what about you? What are your observations regarding unexpected external elements which are shaping the future of art and design?
Well, unexpected external elements. I mean, how could you even, everything, you know, nothing is predictable at this point. You know, we don't know what's coming next. So I think it's really about swimming with the current and adapting to what's coming. And with that, there's like an evolution that happens because as you adapt, you grow, you learn more, then it pivots you into other, you know, pathways. You may find yourself somewhere completely different, you know, and it may feel like, you know, it may feel intimidating at first, but I think that going with the flow and allowing for yourself to expand with those unexpected elements, you know, and just allowing them to lead you into new places, that's where you discover new things. That's where you find yourself in new situations or, you know, building on something that you didn't even think you were interested in. All of a sudden, you know, your mind is expanded in different ways. So, you know, I think that it's really just about receiving what's coming at you and knowing that whatever you had planned, you can keep planning for it, but there's always going to be a twist and a turn, and that's kind of what makes it fun.
It seems to be accelerating too these days with the unknown elements that are coming at us. Well, transitioning into more literal constructed spaces, I mean, it goes without saying that all of you guys engage deeply with the making of tangible space. And, you know, having spent my career reimagining some fundamental elements of materiality like paint on walls, I'm especially curious about how you guys approach the tactile. So continuing on the conversation of elements, Morale, I'd love to better understand and, you know, for the audience, like what elements do you use to transform literal spaces, whether it be sound, light, narrative, and are there any elements which you consider non-negotiable in your process? I feel like I know your answer based on what you previously said, but.
Well, nothing is non-negotiable. Like, I think what's also important is like when you're working on something, I mean, for us, like we work in various countries, we're constantly setting up studios in new places, and it's really important to work with what's around you, like work with locals, work with local materials. And, you know, there's an urgency to continue to, you know, build on what is available to you versus trying to reach for something that isn't, because actually like that, you know, carpenter down the road, or if you're not working with wood, let's just say, you know, whatever it may be, whatever that person is that's ready to help you, you don't need to fly the person in. You don't need to look for the person so far away. Like it's all there for you. And I really think that it's about, you know, it's about connecting with the spaces that are available to you and exploring new, you know, there are people that are there to facilitate, and we're constantly like, as like the world becomes, you know, consumerism is just like blowing up, and here we are, you know, sending things back and forth, and especially in, I'm sure you deal with this a lot, right, where it's like it's exhausting, but then it's like if you just look right next door, it's probably all right there for you. So I think your toolbox is actually much more expansive than, you know, you think and believe in, and I think it's just about building on that.
Well, given that I've been a personal guest at your house and have had the opportunity to experience some of your haptic works, I was hoping that you could talk a little bit about your relationship with sound specifically and some of the things that you make.
I would say, so I'm not a sound artist, but frequency is something that just keeps coming up in the work. And I guess it's because maybe like 12 or 15 years ago, binaural sound waves is how I was able to figure out that I was able to turn off the inner chatter, and learn how to meditate through that. And honestly, I meditate while I'm driving. Like when I'm driving, I'm meditating. Like that's like, it's like, so I think we're meditating like very often and we're not even realizing that we're meditating, but sound and frequency has really helped me reach these states where I'm able to relax. And in the last 3 or 4 years, I've been embedding tactile sound systems within furniture works and now within architecture, the architecture of spaces. And what I've found is that whether it be frequency like sound or actually just sound as entertainment, it could be like watching a film, it could be just listening to your favorite song, but utilizing this technology in a way where you can feel sound and it as a vibration. I've just seen this like profound way where it could be an affair where there's like thousands of people and it's so loud and the person's like intimidated to sit down on the work. But as soon as they do, it's like a smile forms. You could see like a softness forming in the face. And it's just a way to sink into this comfort. And I think we have the ability to do that with breathing as well. But most of us don't know how to breathe properly, you know, and it's like it takes training. And so utilizing these technologies and sound within the works has really inspired me because I see what it does to people. And I'm really excited to continue sharing this work. I see that it's going to expand beyond these like collectible design pieces and kind of like move more into public spaces. I see that it can really help children as well and like reshape this next generation because we are only more and more overstimulated, and then like social media and the internet and the way that we are interacting with devices, and it's so important to connect with nature. It's so important to connect with self. It's so important to go back into the body, you know, because when we can be in the body and actually like embody what it is that we want to create, I really do believe that we can attract that likeness, and energy is infectious. And so the frequency works, like they just kind of like help you. It's like a speed ticket, you know, a one-way ticket that like just is like gets you there faster, and Absolutely. It's fun.
Yeah, it's truly amazing. I hope everybody has the opportunity to check it out someday. Noz, in a similar vein, how do you think about function versus feeling?
Yeah, so for me, because I'm working with people's homes, you know, like and frankly, in other spaces where they're public, we have ADA accessibility rules that we want to make sure that we're, you know, being very true to. Function is the core of what once I've achieved functionality, then I get to do everything else, but it has to start there. And function is very tailored, right, to different people's needs. But that's okay. Like, that's great. And also because function now must necessarily, in the kind of mechanical built environment, comply with local code and local rules and all this. Like, there's a lot of the sort of technical part. But the part of me that grew up like a little math brain, like I really liked arithmetic. After, like, once math became conceptual, it wasn't fun anymore. But when there was a right answer, I was like, this is sick. So that's how I feel about function. Is design is necessarily, you need to get the right answer, and then you can do the part that's really subjective. But they must necessarily be both, right? A functional space without feeling is soulless and devastating, and you don't want to be there. Like, you can almost, like, in the absence of there being feeling in a space that should have been designed more thoughtfully, like, you actively feel uncomfortable. So it's funny, you can't negate feeling. You can't not have it, because necessarily the person who's in that space, their response to what you've created is also the feeling. And so if you don't put any in there, someone will feel bad, and that is also valid. But other than that, I mean, feeling, I think, is absolutely necessary in the work that I do, right? It's generally, it should be a positive feeling, but there have definitely been spaces where I've been asked to make something provocative and something where the people who occupy that space want you to feel big feelings, period. Could be big negative feelings, could be big, really good feelings. And those are some of my favorite spaces because it forces me to be brave in the sense that I know that there are going to be a whole bunch of people who really don't like it. And sometimes they're actually my own clients and it's about my own space, which is really interesting. One of the oddest things that has stayed with me during the pandemic, I thought I would just give a visual tour on video over a story that would die 24 hours later of my home. And I am fairly comfortable on camera, so I'm doing this cute little tour. And then one of my clients for whom I have done 2 houses, I'm going to curse, so like, trigger warning and or bleeper warning for anyone recording this, but he sends me a message in DM and he goes, "Your home stresses me the fuck out. I could never live there." And I was like, my man, I've designed 2 homes for you that you love. You understand that, like, I didn't design my home to provoke feelings for you, but in so sharing my space, I've invited other people's feelings to now occupy, some kind of room in my head, because obviously that was 5 years ago. I still remember it. He did eventually apologize, too much, actually. I blocked him. So those were the only 2 homes I will ever design for him. But yeah, so I don't know. Like it's like I really love the feeling part of it. I love what you were saying about breathing and how that's so incredibly important. Like a lot of my spaces in picture, it's funny that you mentioned breathing, actually. It's a thing that I mention all the time. My work is called maximalist. I don't see myself that way, but a lot of the work that I photograph is in that style, so to speak. It's big stuff, big color, really all consuming. There's no room in the picture for you to sort of pause. But when you're in my spaces, every single one of my clients, every single one of the people who visits a space that otherwise looks visually very big, they're like, what's funny is I can breathe in your rooms. Like there's room to breathe, there's room to exhale, despite how much color, despite how many patterns. And that makes me feel really good. Because on the one hand, all I can share really a lot of times is the pictures, but what actually matters is the function and the experience of being in that space.
I love that. I love how you mentioned that function is like core first and foremost, and then feeling kind of comes afterwards, and there's kind of a combination of the two. Jillian, do you feel that a space or artwork works because it works or because it transforms? Or because somebody steals it?
That did not work for me. So is this like in terms of like success then?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think a work can transform a space, as I like installation work and public work. I think it's really cool, instead of saying to someone, let's meet, like maybe you could say, let's meet at that giant red sculpture, instead of like, let's meet at that McDonald's or something. Like there's something inherently cool about the fact that now someone is referencing some abstract shape that didn't need to be there, that the community or whoever decided to now place there, and then that becomes a transforming like signifier. I like that. I think in terms of artists, depending on what you're working, the metrics of success should ideally be determined within the process, whether in fabrication or conceptualization, because each kind of thing you introduce to this world has maybe a new rules, a set of rules of it now existing, because it didn't exist before and now it's here. Part of why I love sculpture is because now it takes up space and you really have to move around it. Richard Serra's Tilted Arc is one of my favorite artworks. It was in 1981, and he was commissioned to do this piece, and he built this giant, I think like 80-foot steel wall that has a little bit of an arch, or like a leaning, and it cut across a courtyard in a city, and people hated it because they had to now walk around it. But that was part of his intention. So the work was successful. But the city, it became an issue, and then it was involved in several legal battles where he was suing for $30 million, and like it's now in different pieces in a warehouse somewhere in the South. And that is not success, right? But like the success of the piece was its downfall in a society. So I think of things like that. And then also like cult classic movies, like when a movie bombs at the box office but becomes incredibly important in the zeitgeist of the cultural moment, like Blade Runner, Rocky Horror Picture Show, Heathers. All of those were things that like bombed. Fight Club also was a considerable bomb at the box office. But now when I think of if something's even important, if you removed it and you just deleted it, would there be a gap? That's how I try to decide if something feels important or not.
Awesome. And so in that vein, is there a project that you're working on currently that excites you that you can share with the audience?
Is this like what's next?
Yeah. What's next for Jillian Mayer? Tell us more.
I have a big sculpture that'll be in fall or winter at Mass MoCA. So that's exciting. And I'm currently working on a really big pergola type of sculpture that will be at the Baker and Museum in Naples, Florida in fall. I just posted some behind the scenes photos on it on the internets, on the Instagram, if you want to check it out. And yeah, I'm kind of trying to like clean up and work on some things that will combine a lot of the different processes I've been learning over the past couple years. So like better welding, glass stuff, ceramic stuff. And I'm working on these glass kind of sculptures that can play video. So like why in your house is there like this big black screen? That's your TV, right? But it's like this big black screen that you just live with, this void space. And I'm like, what if you could just walk up to an art piece and turn that on and watch through that? I feel that would be like much cooler. But also now you have to think about power if you're trying to be sustainable. So also they've invented clear solar panel capabilities. So incorporating that in the glass as well. So the sculpture could, in theory, receive energy and then play more content through it. And if you transform that in a larger scale to a public place, perhaps this art sculpture can also charge your phone or your electric bike or whatever. Like, why do we have to look at everything so fractured? To be like art, design, whatever, like public, combine.
Totally. Do you have any objective in how you want people to feel as part of these projects? Or you haven't really decided that yet?
I don't think so much about feelings, to be honest. I had a therapist once, and that was our main thing we worked on, is she says I should feel feelings. And I asked, what's the point of that? It takes so much time. And she goes, let's start there. And I was like, oh God. But I think more when I make things or when I encourage, when I make things, if anyone can have like one single thought and it like stops them or it introduces another thought into their head, like to me, that's how I would deeply like that's the success.
Yeah. Morale, what about you? What projects are you working on right now? And do you have any objectives about how you want people to feel inside of these spaces?
Okay, well, I've got a few different projects going on, and they're all in different disciplines. I would say I'll highlight two that I'm mostly excited about. 3.5 years ago, purchased a house in the Douro Valley with a friend of mine, Kelsey Falter. The project is called Quinta do Desenho, otherwise known as the Drawing Farm. It's a house overlooking the Douro River, and it's a creative incubator. So the space inside is completely white, and which is very completely opposite of all of my work, which is extremely colorful or complex and utilizing different materials. But this is a space where you would go to create. It's a space that is expansive in the sense that there is a clarity that you can find within the stillness of the home. And we are gathering folks there for retreats and for workshops and opening up dialogue around what it means to create in rural areas, and what it means to get outside of the city and find yourself in nature, and tapping into how that opens up creative pathways. Within that home, there's a sunken living room that has haptics embedded in it. So you can sit within this sunken space and experience frequencies or watch a film and feel the car rumble past you. And so this project has just launched. People are officially staying there as of this past summer. We've had a few events. We have a workshop at the end of next month. And this is a lifelong project. This is a living kind of thing that will continue to evolve. And then separately, as I am constantly working in different spaces, for the last 1.5 years, I've been developing a wearable that is in the process of getting a patent. And that will be launched later this year. And it's, if you know me as a person, whether you know me personally or like you just have seen me, it totally makes sense because it's something that I'm very much so into, but it's completely outside of the scope of like the design and art world. But it's something that will be available for all, and that's what really excites me because, you know, and it's similar to what you were talking about. It's like it's really hard to like just create for, you know, for wealthy people or create works that are too expensive. Like it's so difficult when someone's like, "Oh my God, I really love this, but I can't afford it." Like you feel terrible. Like it just doesn't feel good. So it's like right now focusing on like creating works that can be received and felt by diverse groups, like, and whether that be communal projects such as the blind portrait, which I was able to share this weekend, or spaces for people to find themselves and create, or a wearable that you may buy and interact with, and it's quite interchangeable. So yeah, lots of fun new things, but these would be, I guess, the highlights.
Amazing. And what about you, Noz? I know you're booked and busy.
Yes, sort of. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see after this. But no, I'm kidding. I'm fine. So I will share one project that is almost done. We just wrapped the interior. I mean, at the end of it, it's just a house. It's a lakefront house in Lake Tahoe, which is my like mountain home away from home. So thank you for having me, Aspen. I love you very much. I didn't know. This is my first time here. It's 100% covered in alchemist paint, actually, but that's not why we're on the panel together. That's a total other coincidence. The reason I'm really proud of that particular project is it's the first time that a client has ever asked me to just basically design a home where building sciences and wellness of all of the materials were very heritage and very much the most important thing in the house. More important than the aesthetics, more important than the design. The flow, of course, is a part of that because you have to be a human body moving through these spaces. But every single thing was considered, everything down to like, we originally were going to try and do geothermal energy. And then as it turns out, geothermal, the piers that you drive into the earth in order to pull and dredge thermal energy up, they are oftentimes associated with lots of electromagnetic frequency and radiation. So that, as sort of human health first, was a consequence that we ended up going without that. And we just have solar panels and then traditional energy sources. So there's a lot of really cool things throughout. Like the building plywood has to be like European approved. In terms of like the chemicals, there's absolutely no spray foam insulation, which is really hard in a mountain climate in 2024. That's when we finished. Like it's wild. So everything down to like all of the materials in the house are all natural fibers and latex foams, and there's no chemical dyes that I can't trace back to a plant, which means that things are gonna fade over time. And that's been an incredibly difficult and rewarding project to work on because I don't think that there might be any place in the United States harder to build new construction than on the lake in Tahoe. And I've been the owner's rep on that, so I'm dealing with like now we're building the pier into the water, so I'm dealing with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and like environmental, and it's really, really fun to be learning so much more than just kind of what I've been like known for, which is the interior casing. Like it's the whole structure. And so I'm just really proud of that one. We'll photograph it in a couple of weeks. And then the new stuff is like, I'm kind of entering into the next quarter or two, a chapter of all spaces that are going to be open to the public. Not a public work in the sense of art, because like interior designers don't get like grants to do anything cool. But that's okay. But it'll be like, one of them is going to be a tattoo and piercing shop that we'll be doing, which is really amazing because I believe very strongly in body modification being a really beautiful, transformative way for people to take ownership back of who they are and the bodies that they occupy. We're going to do a restaurant coming up really soon that's right on the beach. And so I get to tap into my like former LA coastal baby universe and sort of like capture what it's like to design a taco bar and also a surf shop, which is wild. and then like maybe a historic coffee shop, maybe, fingers crossed for me. But it's really cool because I've been a little bit for the last like 15 months so entrenched in residential and private space that getting to open my entire brain up to just what do people in the universe want from spaces that they get to visit, and like what kind of like gifts can we impart onto the communities that we're going to be building in. That's really fun. So I don't know, let's see what happens from here.
It's exciting. Okay, ladies, well, in closing, I thought we'd have a little fun and dive into a lightning round. We're gonna move starting with Jillian, Morale, and then Noz, and we're just gonna run through these. I'm gonna throw little surprises at you that you might not have been prepared for. Okay, so if you had to be any pasta noodle, what would you be, Jillian?
Aziti.
Aziti?
I don't know what they're called. Like the ones that are like, we had them at my house. They're like, they're like, it's like two strips that are like strung together. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's not fusilli though. Does someone have it? It's an Italian one, and they're like
A twisty kind. Maybe a rotini?
rotini. Maybe it's a rotini. We'll go for rotini.
Okay. Noz?
Ravioli, just because
Ooh.
it's my favorite and you don't know what's inside.
It's terrifying that you don't know what's inside.
You just
That's why I
have to
picked
trust the chef.
Aziti, I can see through it. I know it's there.
Okay, could you tell us about a project that broke your heart?
Did you hear about that bunker on wheels that got stolen?
Yeah.
Next.
Morale?
I've only had one uncomfortable situation with a client, and it was like a very, very big job in Crimea, where I took 27 other artists to a country where there are sanctions and had to get like, various visas and things for all these people. Little did I know, I was creating an art residency there. Little did I know that, bringing a bunch of artists and managing them in a place like that was just going to be a complete nightmare. But the project was like incredible and so profound, and I'll forever look back at it and be so proud. But what broke my heart was the way that it ended, because of the relationship with the client. And I think that they initially hired me because they like thought that I was this like Instagram person or something, or like they thought, they had this vision and this persona of who I was, and they weren't really ready to like dive into the depth of who I really am. They couldn't meet me there at all. And it was extremely difficult and disappointing. I wasn't able to share the work for a while after the job completed. It's the only time that's ever happened. And also the only time that I have actually severed ties with a client. Like it's always like a love bond,
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that was like something that really broke my heart.
Noz?
Not to be like so down, but this is kind of a down question, Maya.
Fair.
I will start by saying the client and this family are totally fine and great, and they're doing awesome. But we worked on a house together 2019 and 2020. It was meant to be the family house that at the time there was 1 and 2 on the way, and now there are 4 children in this household. Their house burned down in the Palisades fire this past January, and that broke my heart. Like I'll actually still start crying about it now, because it's like so many people lost their homes, and the resiliency of the LA community is wild. So this family happened to be crazy wealthy, so they like liquidated some assets and bought a different house, and they're okay now, and we're designing that one instead. But that one really broke my heart because I never photographed it because it was so special to me that I got to be a part of this family, like doing their thing in this house, and we were going to take our time. And as the kids got older, then maybe we take pictures, once there wasn't like toddler stuff all over the place. And like, it just exists in our memories and their family photos now in the background. And that's all it'll ever be. And that's okay.
Yeah, that was a very difficult time. I mean, climate resiliency and the way that we construct spaces as a result of that is a real topic of conversation. To move into something a little bit happier, do you guys have a dream collaborator, living or dead? Mine is Lenny Kravitz. I hear he's been around, so if anybody wants to introduce me to him, I'm available. Jillian, we'll start with you.
He's no longer alive. I would like to have met, or like maybe like I'd like to AI talk or whatever to Kurt Vonnegut. He was like the first sci-fi writer that made me realize a lot of things.
Cool. Well,
I really thought I was just gonna say Salvador Dali, right? But then earlier Maya and I were talking, and it's actually Jeffrey Deitch. So she told me, that I should just have the courage to let him know that.
Noz?
For me, it's architect Javier Senosian. He's based in Mexico City. And it was funny, Jillian, when you were like, I don't like right angles or straight lines. I was like, girl, I've been manifesting my dream project, whether it's with Senosian or anyone else, is a room or a whole home or an entire structure where there are no corners anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, Casa Organica is amazing. I was able to go on the tour.
Oh my God.
And that's some of the stuff that when I saw that, like the glasswork, I was like, I'm going to figure this out.
That's so
And
cool.
now it's leading to more structural
No, I
glass stuff.
totally see it.
Do you want to work together?
Oh my God, the dream collaboration.
Is this a Barbie collaboration? Like, you want to come? Want to work on this? Maya?
Yes.
Let's go.
All of it. Let's go. Okay. Well, speaking about leaving, it seems like our time is up. But thank you guys. You've been an awesome audience. And please come visit us at the Aspen Collective. We love you, and we love the Aspen Design Conference.